Is silence really golden? People say silence is golden, a way to keep things peaceful and avoid trouble. But is silence always the best choice? Sometimes staying quiet isn't harmless. It's an action that can lead to serious consequences. When injustice, confusion, or conflict happens, silence can do more harm than good. It's not just avoiding a problem, it can become a tool, knowingly or unknowingly, that stops change. In moments like these, silence isn't neutral, it's a choice. And often, it sides with wrongdoing, unfairness, or the way things have always been, even when those things need to change. Think about it. Have you ever stayed silent because speaking up felt too risky? Maybe at work, when a coworker was treated unfairly, or at home, when family traditions clashed with what you believe is right. In those moments, staying silent might have felt like the safest choice. You didn't want to stir up trouble or face backlash. But that silence didn't just protect you, it allowed the problem to grow. It became part of the issue. Silence can feel like a small thing, but it often carries big meaning. As Desmond Tutu once said, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Staying quiet is rarely just doing nothing. It's a decision shaped by fear, comfort, or the hope that someone else will step in. But too often, silence helps the very things we wish would change. Today, we're going to talk about 5 key moments where staying silent isn't just a choice, it's a loss of integrity. These moments require something more from us. They call for bravery, honesty, and action. These ideas are inspired by Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us to focus on what we can control, our actions, choices, and how we respond to the world around us. But before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank you. Your support means so much to me. Creating content like this brings me joy, and your comments and encouragement inspire me to keep going. If you're new here, welcome. Please like this video and turn on notifications so you can join our community. This is a space where we think deeply and take steps toward positive action. Now, let's uncover why silence isn't always golden and how you can use your voice to make a difference. Speaking up isn't always easy, but it's one of the most powerful ways to stand by your values and create real change. Let's begin. 1. When injustice demands action. Injustice isn't just a distant or abstract idea. It's a quiet, creeping force that eats away at trust and dignity within communities. It thrives when people look away, when those who could speak up choose silence. But staying silent in the face of injustice isn't neutral. It's an active decision, one that allows harm to grow and spread unchecked. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "What's not good for the hive is not good for the bee." His words remind us that harm, even if it doesn't seem to affect us directly, eventually poisons the whole community. When injustice is left unchallenged, it creates cracks in the foundation of trust and fairness. Over time, those cracks grow, affecting everyone, even those who thought they were safe in their silence. Why do we stay silent? If silence can do so much harm, why do we so often choose it? The answer lies in fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of standing out, fear of retaliation. These fears are deeply human. Speaking out against injustice can feel risky. It might make us unpopular. It might expose us to criticism, or even put us in harm's way. This fear can paralyze us, convincing us that silence is the safer choice. We tell ourselves it's not our fight, or that someone else will step in. We hope that by staying quiet, we're avoiding conflict or preserving peace. But silence rarely creates peace. Instead, it often deepens the problem, allowing it to spread unchecked. I learned this truth early in my career. A colleague of mine was unfairly blamed for a mistake they didn't make. I knew the truth. Someone else had been responsible. But I hesitated to speak up. I told myself it wasn't my place to get involved. Maybe I even believed that staying quiet would avoid making things worse. But my silence didn't protect anyone. It only allowed the real problem to continue. and left my colleague to shoulder blame they didn't deserve. Worse, it betrayed my own values. I believed in fairness and accountability, yet in that moment, I failed to act on those beliefs. That experience stayed with me. It taught me that silence, even when it feels like the easy choice, comes at a cost. It damages not just the person facing injustice, but also the person who remains silent. It creates a gap between who we are and who we want to be. Standing up to injustice doesn't always mean making grand, dramatic gestures. It's easy to imagine that challenging wrongdoing requires bold speeches or big sacrifices. But that's not always the case. Often it's the small, everyday acts of courage that make the biggest difference. It could be as simple as speaking the truth in a meeting, even if it's uncomfortable. It might mean quietly supporting someone who has been wronged, letting them know they're not alone. Sometimes it's refusing to laugh at a harmful joke or standing firm when you see something unfair. These small actions might not feel like much in the moment, but they have a ripple effect. They challenge the idea that silence is the norm and show others that speaking up is possible. They inspire others to find their courage too. No one can fight injustice alone. It's easy to feel like our individual voice doesn't matter or that our efforts won't make a difference. But when people come together, even small acts can create big change. Marcus Aurelius's words remind us of this interconnectedness. What harms one person harms the community. What strengthens one part of the community strengthens us all. When we speak up against injustice, we're not just helping the immediate victim. We're helping create a culture where fairness and accountability are valued. If you've ever stayed silent when you knew you should have spoken up, you're not alone. It's a common experience, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person. What matters is what we do next. The next time you see injustice, ask yourself, what's the cost of my silence? Who does it hurt? And what does it say about my values? Remember that even small actions can make a difference. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to do it alone. You just have to try. Speaking up against injustice takes courage. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. By finding your voice, you're not just standing up for what's right. You're helping to create a world where fairness, trust, and dignity can thrive. Let your actions, however small, be the beginning of a ripple that inspires others to do the same. 2. When boundaries are crossed. Boundaries are not just personal preferences or arbitrary rules. They are the structures that uphold respect, trust, and balance in relationships. They define how we expect to be treated and how we engage with others. When someone crosses those boundaries, staying silent may seem like an easier choice, but it can have harmful consequences. Silence in such moments communicates something dangerous, that your dignity and self-respect are negotiable. The Stoics understood the importance of self-mastery and respecting one's values. Epictetus famously said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." Defending your boundaries is not an act of rejection, but an affirmation of your worth. It is a way to honor yourself while setting the foundation for healthier relationships. However, when boundaries are crossed, it can feel difficult to speak up. Staying silent often comes from a place of fear of confrontation, fear of damaging relationships, or fear of seeming selfish. These fears are deeply human, and in the moment, silence might feel like the safest option. But failing to address a boundary violation usually leads to larger problems. Silence allows the behavior to continue, suggesting that the boundary is not important or that your needs can be ignored. Over time, this can create resentment and frustration, straining the relationship further and eroding your sense of self-respect. I learned this lesson through a difficult personal experience. For years, I had a relative who frequently borrowed money but never repaid it. At first, I rationalized their behavior, telling myself that helping family was my duty. I wanted to believe they would eventually change. But as time went on, this pattern continued, and I began to feel resentful. Each time they asked for help, I hesitated but ultimately agreed, hoping it would be the last time. My silence allowed the cycle to persist. I thought I was keeping the peace, but In reality, I was enabling their behavior and betraying my own values. The resentment built up until I could no longer ignore it. I realized that by staying silent, I was not helping my relative or myself. Instead, I was allowing my kindness to be exploited and damaging the trust between us. When I finally decided to set a clear boundary, it wasn't easy. I explained to my relative that I could no longer lend them money. I emphasized that this was not about rejecting them, but about protecting my own well being. Though the conversation was uncomfortable, it marked a turning point. Over time, they came to understand my perspective, and our relationship improved. By setting boundaries, I regained my sense of control and self respect. It also allowed us to rebuild our connection on healthier terms. Enforcing boundaries is not about being selfish or shutting people out. It's about creating mutual respect and ensuring that relationships are balanced and fair. Failing to set or uphold boundaries can lead to significant consequences. The erosion of your self-worth, toxic dynamics in relationships, and a loss of trust. Setting boundaries does not always require dramatic actions or confrontations. Sometimes it's about small but consistent steps. Communicate your needs clearly and calmly. Use language that focuses on your feelings, such as, I need to prioritize my financial stability, or I feel disrespected when my opinions are dismissed. Once you set a boundary, it's important to stick to it, even if others push back. Consistency reinforces the message that your boundaries matter. It's natural to feel uncomfortable when setting boundaries, especially if you're not used to it. But remember that prioritizing your well-being is not selfish. It's necessary for maintaining healthy relationships. Each time you enforce a boundary, you strengthen your self-respect and create a foundation for trust and mutual understanding. When someone crosses your boundaries, staying silent might seem easier in the short term, but it comes with a cost. By speaking up, you protect your dignity and your relationships. Defending your boundaries is not about rejecting others, it's about honoring yourself and fostering respect. It's a powerful step toward building authentic connections and living in alignment with your values. 3. When honesty is essential. Honesty is one of the most fundamental values, forming the core of trust and integrity in our relationships and decisions. Yet, honesty is often the first value sacrificed when situations become uncomfortable. In those moments, silence may feel like the safer choice, a way to avoid confrontation or awkwardness. But when honesty is required, choosing silence allows deception, misunderstandings, and mistakes to persist unchecked. It turns silence into an act of betrayal, not just against others, but against yourself and the principles you claim to uphold. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, offered a simple yet profound guideline. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. His words emphasize the importance of aligning our actions and words with what is right and true. However, what about the lies that are not spoken, but instead created by silence? When truth is intentionally withheld, silence becomes a subtle but powerful form of dishonesty. It undermines trust, integrity, and the potential for growth or resolution. There was a time in my own life when this lesson became uncomfortably clear. In a previous role, I attended a meeting where a superior presented a critical report. As they spoke, I noticed significant errors in their findings, errors that could jeopardize the success of the project if left unaddressed. I wasn't the only one who noticed. A glance around the room revealed others who seemed uneasy, their expressions suggesting they were aware of the mistakes. But no one spoke up. The silence in the room was deafening, a collective avoidance of discomfort. I hesitated too. My initial instinct was to stay quiet. After all, pointing out the errors would mean contradicting someone in authority, risking embarrassment or potential backlash. It would have been easier to let the meeting pass, to hope someone else would take the responsibility of speaking up. but I knew that remaining silent would allow the errors to stand and potentially harm the project. Summoning my courage, I raised my hand and, with as much respect as I could muster, pointed out the inaccuracies in the report. The atmosphere in the room shifted immediately. The tension was thick, and for a moment I wondered if I had made the wrong choice. But as the discussion unfolded, it became clear that addressing the issue was necessary. The errors were corrected, and the project's direction was realigned. My honesty, though uncomfortable in the moment, preserved the integrity of the work and likely prevented larger problems down the line. This experience taught me a valuable lesson. Honesty is not always comfortable, but it is essential. Choosing to speak the truth, even when it feels risky, strengthens trust and integrity. Silence, on the other hand, can erode these qualities, allowing small deceptions or oversights to grow into larger issues. The lies created by silence are particularly insidious because they often go unnoticed until the damage is done. When we withhold the truth, we deny others the chance to correct their mistakes, learn, or grow. We also deny ourselves the opportunity to act in alignment with our values. Over time, this disconnect between what we believe and what we do can create inner conflict and a loss of self-respect. Honesty doesn't require harshness or confrontation. It's possible to speak the truth with kindness and respect. The key is to focus on the issue rather than the person and to approach the situation with a genuine desire to improve or resolve it. In the case of the meeting, I made sure to frame my observation as a concern for the success of the project, rather than as a critique of my superior. This approach made the conversation more constructive and less combative. Choosing honesty in difficult moments is not just about addressing specific issues. It's about building a culture of openness and trust. When you consistently speak the truth, you set an example for others, showing that honesty is valued and respected. This can encourage others to do the same, creating an environment where deception and avoidance have little room to thrive. Of course, being honest doesn't mean sharing every thought or observation. Discretion and timing are important. The goal is not to create unnecessary conflict, but to address situations where withholding the truth would cause harm or perpetuate falsehoods. By choosing honesty in these moments, you protect not only the immediate situation, but also the integrity of your relationships and your own sense of self. The next time you face a moment where honesty feels difficult, ask yourself, what is the cost of staying silent? What are the potential consequences of withholding the truth? Remember that while speaking up might feel uncomfortable in the short term, it often leads to better outcomes in the long run. By aligning your actions with your values, you strengthen your integrity and contribute to a culture of trust and accountability. Honesty is rarely the easiest path, but it is always the most rewarding. It allows us to live authentically, build stronger relationships, and create a foundation of trust and respect. In moments where silence feels like the safer choice, consider the words of Marcus Aurelius and let truth guide your actions. 4. When a mistake requires correction. Mistakes left unaddressed don't vanish with time. Instead, they grow, often creating larger problems that become more difficult to fix. Like cracks in a dam, small oversights or errors can lead to significant failures if ignored. Addressing mistakes, however, is not about assigning blame. It's about taking accountability and ensuring that the situation improves for everyone involved. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher, reminds us that obstacles can become opportunities. He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way," suggesting that the very challenges we face are the paths to growth and progress. Mistakes, then, are not simply problems to be avoided, but opportunities to learn, correct course, and move forward with greater clarity and purpose. Early in my career, I encountered a situation that taught me the importance of confronting mistakes directly, even when it feels uncomfortable. During a team presentation, I noticed a minor calculation error in one of the data slides. At first glance, it seemed like a small issue, something that could easily be overlooked. The presentation was going smoothly, and everyone in the room appeared engaged and supportive. I hesitated to speak up, worried that pointing out the error might disrupt the flow of the meeting or make my colleagues feel criticized. For a moment, I considered staying silent. After all, the error was minor, and the meeting had a positive tone. But as I sat there, I began to think about the potential consequences of letting the mistake go unaddressed. Even small errors in data can lead to misinformed decisions, especially in a professional setting where accuracy is critical. I realized that if the mistake went unnoticed, it could affect not only the project but also the credibility of our team. Summoning my courage, I raised my hand and politely pointed out the discrepancy in the calculation. I framed my comment as a clarification, emphasizing that I wanted to ensure everyone was working with the most accurate information. The room fell silent for a moment, and I could feel the tension as the people processed what I had said. To my relief, the response was constructive. The presenter acknowledged the error, thanked me for bringing it to their attention, and quickly corrected the slide. What could have been an awkward moment turned into an example of teamwork and accountability. Addressing the issue on the spot prevented a cascade of misinformed decisions and demonstrated that our team valued accuracy and transparency. This experience reinforced an important lesson. Confronting mistakes is not about creating conflict or assigning blame. It's about taking responsibility and prioritizing the greater good. Mistakes are inevitable, but how we handle them defines our integrity and professionalism. Ignoring errors might feel easier in the short term, but it often leads to larger problems that could have been avoided with a simple acknowledgement and correction. Addressing mistakes requires a mindset shift. Instead of seeing errors as failures, we can view them as opportunities to learn and improve. This approach aligns with the Stoic principle that obstacles are pathways to growth. When we confront mistakes, we not only resolve the immediate issue, but also cultivate a culture of accountability and trust. It's important to approach these situations with respect and tact. Pointing out a mistake doesn't need to be harsh or critical. Instead, frame your observation as a desire to contribute to the success of the project or team. Focus on the solution rather than the problem, and emphasize that addressing the error is a collective effort to ensure the best possible outcome. By addressing mistakes, we also model accountability for others. When people see that errors can be handled constructively, they're more likely to take ownership of their own mistakes and contribute to a culture of openness and continuous improvement. This creates a positive feedback loop, where accountability becomes a shared value rather than a source of fear or defensiveness. Of course, speaking up isn't always easy. It takes courage to voice concerns, especially in situations where authority dynamics, social pressure, or fear of judgment come into play. However, staying silent often carries greater risks. Unaddressed mistakes can undermine trust, damage relationships, and lead to outcomes that could have been avoided with timely intervention. In moments of hesitation, it can be helpful to remind yourself of the potential benefits of speaking up. Addressing a mistake might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it can prevent larger problems, enhance trust, and demonstrate your commitment to integrity. Over time, these actions build your confidence and reputation as someone who values accountability and excellence. Mistakes are inevitable, but they don't have to be catastrophic. When we confront errors directly and constructively, we turn challenges into opportunities for growth and improvement. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the obstacles we face can become the very paths we need to take. By addressing mistakes, we not only resolve issues, but also strengthen our character, our relationships, and our ability to navigate the complexities of life and work. Silence might feel safe, but honesty and accountability are always the better choice. 5. When your expertise can help others. Knowledge is more than a tool for personal growth or achievement. It is a profound responsibility. When we withhold what we know, especially when it has the power to ease another person's suffering, we deny them a lifeline. Sharing what we have learned through our struggles, reflections, and experiences is not just an act of generosity. It is a moral obligation to contribute to the well-being of others. Marcus Aurelius expressed this idea beautifully when he wrote, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." This Stoic wisdom reminds us that our personal growth and the collective good are deeply interconnected. There was a time in my life when I learned this lesson firsthand. After experiencing a profound personal loss, I found myself navigating the complex and often overwhelming emotions that come with grief. The process was anything but linear. It was messy, unpredictable, and deeply isolating at times. Over months, I gained insights and coping mechanisms that helped me find a sense of balance. But when a close friend later experienced a similar loss, I hesitated to share what I had learned. I feared that speaking up might be intrusive, or that my words would fall short of what they needed. In those moments, it felt safer to remain silent, to let them navigate their pain in their own way. Yet, as I watched them struggle, I began to question whether my silence was truly respectful, or whether it was simply a way to avoid my own discomfort. Eventually, I decided to reach out. I didn't frame my words as advice or try to fix their pain. Instead, I offered my own story, sharing what had helped me and what I had learned about grief. To my surprise, this opened a deeply meaningful conversation. My friend expressed relief at feeling understood and comforted by knowing that someone else had walked a similar path. By sharing my experience, I created a space where they could express their feelings openly and without judgment. This moment taught me the immense value of sharing knowledge with humility and compassion. What we learn through our struggles has the potential to guide others, not because we have all the answers, but because our experiences can illuminate paths they might not yet see. When we share our knowledge, we create connections that foster trust and mutual growth. However, sharing knowledge requires sensitivity. It's not about imposing our perspective or assuming we know what's best for someone else. True generosity of knowledge lies in listening first, understanding where the other person is coming from, and offering insights only when they are welcomed. The goal is not to lead, but to walk alongside, offering support and understanding. The power of sharing knowledge extends beyond personal relationships. In professional settings, too, withholding expertise can hinder progress and innovation. Imagine a workplace where team members are reluctant to share their insights or experiences for fear of overstepping or being judged. Such silence stifles collaboration and creates unnecessary obstacles. By contrast, environments that encourage open sharing of knowledge often thrive, as individuals feel empowered to contribute and learn from one another. Small acts of sharing can have a significant impact. A kind word, a piece of advice, or a story from your past might seem insignificant to you, but to someone else, it could be the insight they need to move forward. These moments of generosity ripple outward, creating a culture of trust, compassion, and growth. It's important to recognize that sharing knowledge doesn't always require profound expertise or extraordinary life experiences. Sometimes, it's the simple, everyday wisdom we gain from navigating ordinary challenges that proves most valuable. Whether it's offering advice on managing stress, sharing a strategy that worked for you in a difficult situation, or simply being honest about your own vulnerabilities, these acts of openness can make a meaningful difference. At the same time, it's crucial to approach these moments with humility. Sharing knowledge is not about positioning yourself as an authority or expecting gratitude in return. It's about recognizing the shared humanity in our struggles and extending a hand when someone else might need it. The most impactful acts of sharing often come from a place of empathy and authenticity, rather than a desire for recognition. Marcus Aurelius' wisdom reminds us that what benefits the collective ultimately benefits the individual. When we contribute to the well-being of others, we strengthen the bonds that connect us. By sharing our knowledge, we not only help others, but also deepen our own understanding and sense of purpose. The next time you hesitate to share what you know, Ask yourself, what is holding me back? Is it fear of being misunderstood or rejected? Is it discomfort with vulnerability? Recognize that these feelings are natural, but also remember the potential impact of your words. When shared with care and compassion, your knowledge has the power to uplift, inspire, and transform. In a world where so many people feel isolated in their struggles, the simple act of sharing can create profound change. Your experiences, no matter how ordinary they may seem, hold value. By offering them to others, you contribute to a cycle of trust, growth, and connection that benefits everyone, including yourself.